I got lucky to get to the number 2 position by the time we opened the season against the University of Miami.
You was
And I
dealing with
had,
some bad boys.
and Ray Lewis was their middle linebacker, and there were some other terrific players on that team. And Coach Donahue just said, you're in there. Like, go, just go. There was no, heart to heart or, hey, everything's going to be okay.
You're going to die.
Yeah.
Okay, get in there. Welcome into another exciting edition of Good in the Game. I'm Lavar Arrington. I'll be your host on this journey. Today, we're going to talk to a guy, really super special guy by the name of Cade McNown. That's right. Went to UCLA, was a quarterback, played 4 years. He's done some pretty extraordinary things. And you know what? The game played a part in why this man is so extraordinary. We're going to jump into this interview and we're going to talk. We're going to have a great conversation. So many things to touch on. His mom being a part of his childhood. He went into finance after he was done with the game of football. He had his appendix removed. Sheesh. Talk about dealing with adversity. And it happened his junior year of high school, which is one of the most important years to get recruited to a college. How did he overcome those things? You'll find out. Stay tuned. Right now, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Good in the game. And obviously, everybody knows without any introduction being need to be made, this is Cade McNown, UCLA great, Chicago Bear. We won't go to all the other teams, but you are a college Hall of Famer, class of 2020. Had a brilliant career. In fact, your career is so brilliant that your passing yards record still has yet to be eclipsed by any UCLA quarterback. And by the way, there have been some pretty doggone good UCLA quarterbacks in the history of the school. So to hold that record is tremendous and amazing. You were 12th overall pick. And now you're in finance, and which I'm going to be interested to hear more about what you've done off the field than some of the things that we will touch on the field. But appreciate you coming on. Excited to have this opportunity to talk with you. And let's start off with this. You're born in Oregon. You end up playing ball in California, Hollister, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. What is it? Margarito, there's a whole, there's so many of them out here. Oh my gosh. There's so many out here. But you played well in high school. You get to UCLA and you did something that no one has ever done. You started all 4 years and you beat the crosstown rival, all 4 times that you were there, which is, man, if you were to say somebody's going to do that to USC and it's UCLA at this point, I think people would debate that fiercely, Cade. So let's start there. High school leads you into a place where you clearly must have felt you were confident enough to come into UCLA and win the job. Walk us through that.
Well, yeah, it starts back at as you referenced, San Benito High School, in Hollister, California, also known as Hollister High School. But it was kind of an interesting journey for me to get to UCLA because I managed to earn the starting quarterback position running a wing T offense at Hollister my junior year. But just a few games into my junior year, I actually ended up having an emergency appendectomy, which ended up eliminating the balance of my season. So I was really, looking forward to that. As you know, that junior year is a big one when you're looking to play at the next level and to be going into an operating room a few weeks into my junior year and get cut on. I remember I remember getting the procedure and asking if I was going to be okay to play the game later that week. And the doctor, I remember, kind of laughed at me. He's like, "No, you're done.
Whoa.
You're done for the
Okay.
year."
Yeah.
And I cried my eyes out. I was pretty devastated, but managed to kind of get myself back on the recruiting map in the spring that year. There was a Reebok combine up in at St. Mary's College in Moraga, California, and ended up going there. And there were a lot of recruiters there from various universities, and I performed okay, but ultimately I ended up moving up to Oregon that summer before my senior year and having to kind of start all over, but managed to have a pretty good season wherein we made it to the state semifinals that year. And really what kind of happened is, you know it better than I do nowadays, the way kids get recruited. I mean, everybody's got their own videos and all, it's all digital and you could just send it to anybody. And I actually was lucky that I've got a brother who's 4 years older than me who went down to the local cable station that recorded all the games, and he worked with somebody there to cut a highlight reel. I put it on a VHS tape, and I sent it to five different schools, and they were all schools I was interested in attending. The only one that I sent it to that would not take me seriously, not that they weren't taking me seriously, but they'd already committed to another player, was Notre Dame. I'd actually gone there also for football camp. That was back in the days when Rudy was coming out, and a lot of people were paying attention to Notre Dame. And I remember going back and spending a week in South Bend.
That would have been Paulus when you were in your time, right? Ron Paulus?
Yeah. Yep. He was there, and Lou Holtz was the coach, and and I remember going back there and being really interested in going, but they'd already committed to somebody. So the other schools that I sent it to all expressed interest kind of late. I mean, this was going out, kind of in December of my senior year, and I ended up getting offers for visits. And my first visit was to UCLA, and the other schools that I think I sent that tape to were Stanford, Washington, and Oregon. And and then you start getting the recruiting letters and all that sort of stuff. But my first official visit was to UCLA, and Terry Donahue towards the end of my visit invited me into his office and said, "Hey, listen, I'm interested in two quarterbacks, and if you say you're coming, I'm not interested in the other." And I stood up and I shook his hand. I said, "Well, I'm coming to UCLA." So I was an easy guy for them to get. Ultimately, I liked what I saw, and I heard it from Coach Donahue, and I said, "Well, I'm coming." So that's what ultimately got me to UCLA. I ended up making that commitment on national letter of intent day, which I think was February 1st in 1995, and never looked back. I made the right decision, and I was thrilled to get down there and compete. I was not certainly offered any sort of starting job or anything like that. I just wanted to go to a great university with a great academic profile, and a place ultimately where I could also where I felt like I had a chance to be on a winning team where we could win the Pac-10 title.
Well, I'll first start off by saying, when you have a coach that believes in you and believes enough in making that type of bold proclamation, I'm with you there 100% on take that.
And one funny side note before we move on, I'll just share it with you, because it's kind of amusing talking to a Penn State guy about it. But I remember getting a recruiting letter from Penn State, and thinking to myself, boy, that Joe Paterno, he's pretty old. I don't know if he'll be around much longer. And Terry Donahue is so young, and he'll definitely be. Coach Donahue left after 1 year, and Paterno stuck around for another
About
15 or
about 15, 20 more.
so.
And
So
now
it's
that
kind
would
of
have been Kerry Collins when you were coming in, right? It would have
yeah,
been Collins, and then what? Wally Richardson would have been the quarterback.
yeah. And you guys
During
had
your
just
time.
played actually the Penn State, I believe the Penn State Oregon
Yeah, that
paint
had
was
just.
on the Rose Bowl field in the 1995 game when I went and visited the Rose Bowl to see where
Wow. How
UCLA
about
played, and
that?
so I remember seeing the Penn State paint and the Oregon paint
Well,
back then.
we had a different outcome for that game that year than we did than this year in the Big Ten championship. But it's not about Penn State. This is about Cade McNown. Obviously, the UCLA Bruin great, the quarterback that did some amazing things. So you did go through some adversity in your recruitment, getting the surgery done with you said your appendix, right?
Yeah.
Appendectomy. That's yeah, that's I had to do a hernia surgery. So anytime they got to go into your core like that, man, that's always like that's a thing. Talk to me about the name of this show is Good in the Game. All right. And there's the level of high school and to college, college to pro into real life, and then we're now old enough to be real life. It's removed really so much from any really kind of we could say we still relate to the game, but we're really in real life of our lives. So there's different phases of what good in the game has represented for us. Foundationally speaking, how did you play for a long time? Were you a few years player? Did you develop coping mechanisms? What was a part of your experience as a football player at the younger age? Whether it's high school, whether it's even beyond before that, leading up to having to deal with some of the adverse situations to even get the opportunity to get a scholarship. Just walk me through a little bit of what do you remember vividly in terms of how the game was good for you?
Yeah, well, as you know, it is a tough game, and I get asked a lot by parents. Gosh, what would you let your kids play football and all this kind of stuff? And my answer is always the same. If your kid likes to hit, please let them play football. If your kid doesn't like to hit, don't make them play football. Because you're either the bug or the windshield out there, and if your kid doesn't want to be the windshield, he will be the bug. And
Right.
and I loved hitting. I mean, I could not. My parents didn't want any of the two boys playing football till high school, but my brother, who's 4 years older than me, got to play, and I threw a fit in the fifth grade and somehow managed to get them to acquiesce and allow me to play Pop Warner football. But I got started playing offensive guard, tackle, D tackle because I was a bigger kid, and then slowly moved my way into like fullback, linebacker, eventually kind of outside linebacker, running back, and then ultimately into this sort of free safety quarterback on both sides. But to your question about some of the things I remember vividly, and just take for a second the difficulty of the game, and then kind of layer on. I remember hearing an inspirational speaker come to our high school one year, and one thing that I took away that day was, it's not what you do when the coach is looking; it's what you do when the coaches aren't looking that really makes the difference. And I remember taking that very, very literally and seriously to the point when the coach wasn't looking, I would run harder. I would push myself more. I was kind of crazy about that. And as you know, sometimes when the quarterback who's not as fast as everybody else is beating everybody else in wind sprints and
You
everything
gotta
else,
step it up.
that
You
doesn't
gotta
always
step it
make
up.
people happy.
Yeah.
so
Whether you like it or not, you gotta step it up,
so I always, and I always felt like, regardless of the leader, you never ask, the people that you're trying to lead to do something you're not willing to do yourself. And I was very serious. I love football. I loved playing football. I mean, I played a lot of sports, and I loved really whatever was in season, quite frankly. But football was always my favorite sport. And I just remember, you know, very early on, all the work that goes into the game. I mean, the game is kind of, that's really the fruit that comes out, but all the hard work is what gets you into that position to have success. And I took it very seriously, and all the way through college, I was a very dedicated teammate, a very dedicated player. I just never wanted to look back at any moment in my life. Just kind of knowing even then, as I got older, I never wanted to look back and think, gosh, I wish I would have prepared more. I could have tried harder. I wish I didn't go out that night and I, could have done better. I just never wanted to have those regrets. And I don't. I mean, I always joke, I didn't drink, anything when I never drank alcohol when I was in college. Not that you can or can't. I just chose not to. I figured right. I wasn't talented enough to be able to do that and then still still be a performer on Saturdays. And so I avoided all that, and I was just super dedicated, and I love it. And I look back, and both good and bad, whatever came of it, it wasn't for a lack of effort or preparation or anything that I could control. That something maybe a bad decision was made or in a game, or we lost a game or something. I never have to look back with any regrets in college football that I wasn't all in and prepared and giving 100%. So I was pretty lucky to have that mentality, I guess.
What did all in look like for you? I know you mentioned not drinking. I know you mentioned running the wind sprints hard, but give me, do you have an example of what all in represented? Was there a moment in particular that represented all in for you? I know for me, when I was in high school, my all in moment was I played against Woodland Hills my freshman year, and they beat the brakes off of me, and I quit during the game. I quit. I took my helmet off on the sideline. I sat on the bench, and I said, I quit. I'm done. I'm not going back in, and I'm never going to play ever again. I quit. And my quarterback, 33, the greatest football player I've ever seen, no matter what, I don't care. It is what it is. He's the reason why I won a state title, the only title I've ever had in my entire life. I had a quarterback. And 33 comes up to me, Eric Kasparovich comes up to me, and he tells me that you're special. You're special, and everybody knows it. And you're either going to gut up and you're going to deal with what comes with being special, or you can bow out right now. Now, I could say in the moment, like now, after everything has happened, that was the magical moment in that moment, but I was resistant to it. But he planted the seed. It was the most impactful moment of understanding what adversity was. Then I started paying attention to him running the wind sprints faster than everybody. I started paying attention to him and how he was breaking down the film. I started paying attention to little things like how the coaches responded and communicated with him. If he didn't want to do something, they talked about it and they would not do it. And I got to a point in my young stage where I said, I want that to be me. I don't play quarterback. I don't want to play quarterback, but who he is and what he represents to this team, I want that to be me. And I started to evolve after that. Do you recall any type of moments that kind of hit you in a way where it made you see that there was something more for you? It made you realize that you could be more than what you even thought you could be?
Gosh, that's a great question. I mean, I feel like I had some of those conversations with some of my teammates, the way your guy did with you. That's
Yeah,
for sure. But I would say a lot of it. For me, the probably the moment that I sort of believed I could. Um, I don't know that I mean, I was probably incredibly naive, and I was. You'd probably be hard pressed to find people to tell you that I didn't believe in myself. I might have overly believed in myself at times, but I'll credit that to my mother and father for drilling that into my head. So,
talk about it. Talk about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's
So,
all relevant. It's
no,
good in the
listen,
game. It's all relevant.
it is. I mean, I give a lot of credit to, uh, certainly to my mom. My mom, has like rose-colored glasses.
It's
Everything's
good.
good.
It's
Everything's
good.
great.
Yeah,
And
it's gonna be
maybe,
okay.
and really believing, and saying to me like, that I'm, probably better than I am. So, I probably had an overly inflated view of my capabilities, but
Good
I would
job,
say,
mom.
yeah,
Good job,
exactly.
mom.
But but I would say, you know, what my freshman year at UCLA, I just kind of got lucky to get into the position to be the number two guy. When I got there were probably five or six quarterbacks on the depth chart, and being a true freshman, I certainly wasn't shooting up
5 or 6.
very quickly. Yeah. So exactly. I'm in the back of the line. But through, I think it was just through at some level performance, but also some injuries to other guys ahead of me, and that's another thing I try to remind people before they want to, transfer schools or, go here, go there. It's like you're one play away, or maybe two plays, right? I mean, people get hurt all the time. So I got lucky to get to the number two position by the time we opened the season against the University of Miami. And our starting quarterback ended up getting knocked out of the game, literally.
They was
And I
dealing with
had,
some bad boys.
yeah,
Them
and
was that was some boogie monsters out there when you was playing against them.
yeah. So
Woo!
I got, and Ray Lewis is their middle linebacker, and there's some other terrific players on that team, and I'll never forget it was a big nationally televised game and everything, and I'm 3 months out of my lunch line in high school, and I'm standing on the sideline at the UCLA football game. I mean, I just watched them
Woo!
play Nebraska the year before from a couch. So this is a big deal. And all of a sudden, our guy gets knocked out, and Coach Donahue just said, you're in there. Like, go, just go. There was no heart to heart, or hey, everything's gonna be okay.
You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
get in there.
just get in there. And
Just get
and
in
I,
there.
I said okay. And I remember his, whether it was real or fake, his confidence, at least from what I perceived, his confidence in not even talking about anything, just get the play and get in there. Um, I was like, well, let's go. I mean, I'm getting, I get chills thinking about it still.
That's
So
awesome.
it was really, it was great. And I ended up, I think it was probably 5 plays. We picked up a first down, and then we ended up kicking a field goal. And then the starter went back in. But that was a moment for me where I was like, okay, I'm
I
here.
can do
And,
this.
and the next week he gets knocked out again, and this time I have to finish the game, and ended up having a really good game, and against BYU in Provo, and ended up starting the third game because at that time, back to back weeks of concussions, you were considered out for at least a week. So I started the next game, and we ended up losing a heartbreaker on the last play of the game. We had a chance to beat Oregon at home, and ended up losing. And he started the next week, and I played half the game. And at that point, it was like, who knows what's going to happen? We were, I think, 2-2 at that point, and there was a big lead up to that week against Fresno State, my freshman year, and we were both sort of taking an even amount of snaps during the week with the first team, and Coach Donahue did not tell anybody who was going to start that week until right before kickoff, and he walked over to me that game. He said, "You're in," and so that I started every game from there till the end of my college football career, and just I always felt like having the confidence of my coaches, that belief and sort of empowering me to go out there and have the team in my hands was a very powerful statement, and I took it very seriously. I knew it was a privilege to be out there. I didn't ever for a minute feel a sense of entitlement. From my freshman year to my senior year, I always felt very, very lucky and privileged to be playing for UCLA and being the starting quarterback at a university that had seen many, many incredible players over the years, not just quarterbacks, but across the board. And I took it very seriously, but that was certainly early on encouraging for me to go out there and have the support of my coaches.
I love that. How did it play a part? You're a cerebral dude. Like I would have enjoyed playing against you in college. Not so much pros because they use me differently, but you're cerebral. So I would have been looking at you and I would have been trying to read you and figure out what you're communicating to your players. You're a communicator, I can tell, and you're very it's there. Now it makes me wonder about, again, you brought up the academic aspects of what it is. UCLA is an amazing, tremendous school for academics. How did this mindset, you taking it very seriously, and the opportunities that were being created and coming your way in football, how did you balance that out with being a superior academic, a student athlete, at the time of trying to balance out all of the athletics as well?
Well, Lavar, first of all, I'd love to tell you I was a superior student throughout my years at UCLA. I cannot say that. I probably carried closer to a 3.0 average in college, although I did not have enough credits completed at the end of the fall of my senior year. So I ended up having to come back years later to finish my degree.
Good for you.
I didn't have the redshirt year, but I will say when I came back and I did not have the full-time job that is being a college football player, my results in the classroom were far better. I'd say if all you got to do is get up and go to class and take tests.
Go figure, right?
It's not that hard.
Right. You just got to be there. You got to be present. That's really all it is.
And I tell my 4 kids, I say, listen, school is not that hard. You go in, you listen to what they say, you repeat it back to them in the form of a test or whatever else. And, if you're listening and you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're probably going to do pretty well. Where it gets challenging is when you've got a, pick your number of hours a week job, like, being a college football player and having to meet all those expectations and then balance that gets a lot more challenging. So during the season, certainly much more challenging, but even in the off season, you're training a lot, your body's tired. When your body's tired, it's hard to get mentally, up to task. And so it's always a challenge. And I don't think you can really do it well without being all in and fully committed. I would say my social focus was minimal in college, and so but that was very intentional. I just knew those 4 years were going to come and go, and whatever the average age that we may live is going to be, 4 years is very, very small, and I just did not want to let any opportunities slip by where I could have been better about making sure that they happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great piece of advice. I hope everybody out there listening and watching right now heard what you just said. Sometimes the sacrifice of now, is you doing what you have to do. You are doing what needed and what must be done. That ultimately puts you in position to do what you want to do, and that is definitely a tremendous piece to all of it. Cade, talk to me about, you're connected to the National Football Foundation, obviously. Talk to me about what that's meant to you, that connection, and obviously understanding that the balance of what the NFF represents is such an important piece to everything that takes place for us within our own community, is being great in the community, being great and the in the classroom, being great on the field, being great as people. That's been my experience since joining and being a part of the NFF, the National Football Foundation. What's your experience been?
Well, it's just been an incredible experience, and the National Football Foundation and what it stands for and what it promotes are just incredible values. Promoting the game of football, and really um, all the life lessons football instills in us. Um, it's just really, really important for kids, to get to experience that if they can. And as you know, the game is always shifting and changing. When we grew up, um, it seemed like there was a Pop Warner team in every town. Many teams in some cases. And I would say in some of the bigger cities, especially I live in Los Angeles, I would say it's not as popular as it used to be. Certainly the NFL and the attention at the high levels is there. But I would say that at the younger levels, there's a lot more flag football, there's lacrosse, there are all sorts of other sports that are popping up that people are paying attention to. And when we were growing up, it was kind of a rite of passage, and it was something you just needed to do. You had to be on the football team. I don't know that that's necessarily the case anymore in certain areas. In other areas, it's continued and grown tremendously. Certain states throughout the South, the Midwest, et cetera. But the values that we get to learn and understand and be a part of because we got to play football are so important. And the fact that the National Football Foundation is out promoting that across the country is something that I just would not want to miss out on at all. So to be a part of this in some small way is something I'm very proud of, very thankful for. In fact, one of the things I've gotten involved in over the last 10 years was something started by my old coach, Terry Donahue, called the California Showcase, where he basically put together a combine for kids to be able to be seen by lots of other colleges and universities around the country that aren't necessarily the 1A, top 100 schools, but have scholarships to give, in football, and sort of just providing a venue to allow those recruiters to see these kids. And what's been great is they're not out raising money. The scholarship dollars are already there. They're just creating the combine to make that, to bring the money and the kids in need together, and have been able to give out, or actually connect, well north of $10 million in scholarships over the last several years. And it's just it's a terrific venue. So being asked to be a part of that by the late great Terry Donahue was a pleasure. I still help out, and I try to be helpful in a number of ways around the game, and including being visible with the foundation. Obviously coming back and getting to participate in the College Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony like we did this past week. Beautiful. And continuing to be a part of that and finding ways to add value in whatever way I can is something I'm interested in doing.
So you went to finances. So clearly, finances, numbers are like a school of fish to me, Cade. Like I can keep them in a school for a little bit, then they start going every which direction, man. You know what I mean? Like numbers are crazy. They give me motion sickness at times. And that's okay because we all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. Clearly, it was a strength for you. You're working for a prestigious advisory group right now. Talk to me a little bit about what you have going on now. And just for us to wrap it up, how did your time as a football player play a part? How major a role is that in what it is that you do now? And if you could tell us how that is, that would be great too.
Well, listen, I won't make this a pitch for what I'm doing now, but I will say that what I am doing now is something I'm very excited about. It's a little bit of a culmination of many of my life's experiences. When I first got out of football, I found my way into finance through the wealth management channel. I went to work for UBS briefly, and then JP Morgan in the private bank. Spent some time there, and ultimately got myself into a business that helped advise individuals on their on their wealth. So kind of a wealth management business within an independent framework, and ultimately got myself into a business that does private equity and private credit investing across a range of industries. It's sort of been a long journey, but ultimately I now about 6 months ago joined a firm called Redbird Capital that interestingly invests in sports, media and entertainment, and financial services. It's a private equity firm, and
Nice.
And we're doing, believe it or not, quite a bit in collegiate athletics. We're doing
Nice.
in partnership with the NFL, and then doing various things around media and entertainment as well. So it's really, if you took a Venn diagram of sort of my life experiences and overlaid it with our investment portfolio, it would look they'd look very similar, which is fun. I get to have some level of subject matter expertise around what we're investing in, which is really fun.
That's awesome. And so looking at that and being competitive, how does it compare? How does doing what you do now compare to, because you're a competitor. I mean, I can see it I can see the intensity in you and the feelings that you feel in talking and discussing the things that we're talking about. How does that intensity play a part in what you're doing right now? How does it compare?
Yeah, no, in fact, just earlier we were talking about, some of the things we endure in college and setting ourselves up for later in life. And I'll never forget, every great football team had a great training group and a strength and conditioning program, and those people in there that push you. That's when you're really forming yourself. And I remember my junior year, our strength and conditioning coach yelling at everybody saying, guys, we are going to make you do the things you don't want to do so you can be who you want to be. And what you realize when you get out of football, that now I have to make myself do the things I don't want to do to be who I want to be. And that's another challenge, but you do it. And in my business, you've got to be patient, but you've got to be persistent. And that's no different than the long-term nature of building yourself in the game of football. It starts when you're young. You're developing yourself. When you started playing in junior high school or high school, you weren't ready to play in the NFL.
Right.
It takes time. Your body's got to develop. Your mind's got to develop. And what you realize once you get into the NFL, especially your rookie year, is that guy who's in that 3 technique across from you, he might have been in that 3 technique now for 20 years between the NFL, college football, high school.
All the way back to the video.
That free safety, he may have been doing these tricks for 20 years, right? I'm fresh meat. And so you gotta understand that even though you're all on the same field, some are just far much further ahead than you are. And so for me to start in a career where many of my contemporaries in my career started, in college and then right out of college, I started much later. So having a balance of sort of expectations around my ability to perform, based on my age, and then, being realistic about all the knowledge that I need to ultimately gather and the experience that I need to have to be effective is something that you got to wrap your head around, and it takes time. You don't get, and I think that for me, the silver lining in, hurting my shoulder. I had a shoulder separation halfway through my second year with the Bears. Tried to come back. Ultimately, got traded twice. I mean, I was damaged goods when the Dolphins got me, and even more damage by the time I got to the 49ers. But
we've all been there.
Yeah, but
if you're fortunate, you've been there.
yeah. But the silver lining getting out of professional football at 26 is that
still young. You were still young.
Still young. I could sort of start that journey at a time that allowed me, within reason, to be, a grunt, with other grunts that might be younger than me. But that's the challenge when you get out. You get into your 30s, and then if you want to go down another path, it's very, very challenging. Now, ideally, at that point, you've also financially done quite well, and you sort of set yourself up, hopefully, to be in great shape for a long time. But for me, recognizing that I had to start all over again at 26 was, to me, more manageable than trying to do that, 6, 7, 8 years later. And I'm happy. I mean, look, I'm very happy with how things turned out. If I could have rewritten it, would I have loved to play 10, 12, 15 years? Absolutely. I wanted to go and win championships and do all that stuff. But I'm still very happy with how things have turned out. And I feel very lucky, especially at 47 today, with many, many years ahead of work and raising kids. And, there's a lot to do. I feel like I'm on a very sustainable, manageable path that will allow me to grow in my business life tremendously well. So
love that answer, because that's really what good in the game represents, is being able to have that humility, being able to have that self-awareness that, I got to start over. And if you're starting over, you don't start at the pro level. And just knowing that you got to trust the process, learn the process, do it from every angle. You mentioned it goes back, and I'll close out with this. It goes back to your statement in the beginning. You got into the game and you didn't even play the position you ended up playing. Isn't that a lot like how life is? You start out and you end up playing this position. You play that position. You play this position. Then it's over there. That's way out there, but hey, I'm going to do it. And you learn all of these different positions. And ultimately, it's teaching you the game, right? Now you understand the game. You understand what those guys got to deal with that are in front of you. You understand what they're thinking on the other side of the ball or out there on the outsides, whatever it may be. And that was something that I've made very clear with my kids and how I raised them. Don't be resistant to when somebody asks you to do something that you didn't want to do. Maybe you did want to be a receiver, but they put you at tight end. Maybe you wanted to be a tight end, but they put you at D-line. The bottom line is that learn what it is that they're doing, so that if you do get that opportunity to do what it is that you wanted to do, you'll have an appreciation for what other people are doing. And that's a lot like how business is. You learn it, and a lot of us, we could stand to learn that lesson of be the donut guy. Rookie year, you're the donut guy. You're the breakfast sandwich guy. You got to learn how to be the donut guy, and that takes some humility, but it's also why I believe our game is so amazing, because that's a lesson that some people don't get to learn in real time when they're growing up. It's certainly a lesson we do in playing this game. So, Cade, I appreciate your time, man.
Well
as let me tell you something, as impressive as it gets, and yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming on and giving us some of your time, and obviously continued success with everything that you're doing. And yeah, just humbled to have the opportunity to talk with you, man, and hear your thoughts on what this game has meant to you and how it's shaped your life. So appreciate the time, my guy.
Thanks, Lavar. Well, listen, if you ever get a chance to get yourself interviewed, I want to do it.
All right. Okay. We'll do it.
Because I got a lot of questions. I got a lot of questions for you.
All right. All right, everyone. That was Cade McNown. I'll tell you what, he is as advertised. He had a lot of great things to say, a lot of information, a lot of wisdom, and a lot of experience. I enjoyed speaking with this man. He's from my era, as you heard in the interview. He's got it. He's got it together. He's a sharp guy, and just being able to listen to the things that he's experienced and the things he's overcome and the things that he has achieved ultimately serves the purpose as to why we do this show, Good in the Game. Cade McNown, you are what's good about the game, and you are ultimately good in the game. That's right. Thanks to the National Football Foundation. And thank you for listening. All right. Stay tuned in, subscribe, check us out, and I'll talk to you soon. All right. It's Lavar Arrington. I'm signing out.